Hello and welcome back folks. Welcome back to the next video. In this video, we will talk about an important aspect of resume that you need to have, which is credibility. Credibility is an important aspect of the resume, and you need to have a credible resume in order to establish your identity and get your resume shortlisted or get your resume really trustworthy. So let's take a look at what kind of changes you need to do in order to make your resume more credible. First things first, you need to have a LinkedIn profile or a URL to a LinkedIn profile added to your resume. Here we see all the details of the candidate, the contact information, etc. So it's really important to have a LinkedIn profile URL here. As most of you know, LinkedIn is a professional networking service where you have all the professional connections, and your professional connections endorse your skills or technical capabilities, and some of your connections like your managers or supervisors or whoever your colleagues you have worked with, they might also write recommendations on behalf of you. Hence, the hiring managers or recruiters or whoever is looking at your resume, they can go to the LinkedIn URL and look at your professional networking like the connections or the endorsements or what are the recommendations that you have received. And based upon that, they will see you as a real person. You are not just a 3-page resume here, but you are in fact a real person who is having real professional connections and endorsements and recommendations. So it is always advised to have a LinkedIn profile. So if you do not have a LinkedIn profile at this time, please go ahead and create one. Or your LinkedIn profile is not that active, go back and try to work on it, get back to your connections, ask some of your managers or previous colleagues to do some endorsements or write recommendations for you, because they are really gonna help you. Because the reason is that recommendations need not only talk about your technical capabilities, but are you really a person easy to work with? Because most of the time, the managers are worried whether a candidate I hire is gonna come into my team and he or she can easily get along with other team members in my team. So that is a major concern too. So having someone already recommended you, like your manager or someone from your previous project, whoever is looking at your resume or profile right now, they will have some confidence and credibility that you're a person to work with the technical abilities and your capabilities to work as a team player, etc. So this is very first thing that you need to look at. Apart from LinkedIn, there are a few other things that you need to look at. What I see immediately here is the last name is missing for this candidate here. Sometimes the candidates purposefully do not include their last name for different reasons. One thing is they want to remain anonymous, or they might be worried that their current employer might get their resume and the current employer may know he or she is looking for a change. So there are different reasons people are worried or concerned they do not include their last name. So please go ahead and always include your last name, because there are many fake resumes out there in the market which do not have last name, because some folks out there, they have one resume with 2 years experience and one more resume with 5 years experience with different contact details, email addresses, etc. Hence, you do not want your resume to look like one of the fake resumes. So please go ahead and have a single resume, give it a best shot with all the details, professional information, etc. And I'm sure you're going to get an interview call and you will be able to succeed. Apart from that, what else do you need to do as part of the credibility? Coming back to the second page, I see the educational information here. I see there is a master's degree for this candidate in information system. But one thing is very obvious here. What is obvious here is the passing year or the academic period during which the candidate has pursued this particular degree is missing. You need to go ahead and please make sure you add that kind of that academic years where you have pursued this degree or the year of pass out, etc. Because there are some reasons people do not tend to include this year of passing purposefully, because they might be having some projects at the bottom of their resume. They might be some academic projects and they do not want to reveal that. So that's the reason they purposefully hide the year of passing. But if you do not include the year of passing, it will do more harm than good, because most of the managers, what they look at is they don't really mind if you have 3 years experience or 5 years experience or 5 or 7 years experience. What really matters is, do you have really all technical abilities as part of your projects and skill set in order to perform your job roles or job duties. So please make sure, go ahead and include your year of pass out as well to make your resume more credible. Okay, that's something really important, because apart from professional experience, education is also really important, because it tells you what's the background you are coming from. That's really important to make it really more credible and trustworthy. All right, next, last but not least, responsibilities. Responsibilities are really important. They speak about what you really did as part of your recent project or other project, etc. Because these are something that the hiring manager or the interviewer is really interested in. If you really look into these responsibilities look more generic. What I mean to say is, you need to have these responsibilities speak about your project a little bit. These should not sound more generic. If these are more generic, they look like some cut and paste responsibilities. What I mean to say is, let's go through some of the first few responsibilities here. A regular participant in planning meetings, analyze requirements and prepare the use cases. Preparing test estimation, test strategy, test plan documents and sharing for review and comments. Senior member of a Scrum team to plan, write, execute and refactor manual and automated test cases, etc. And develop UI test cases using Java and Selenium WebDriver using page object model and integrated with the existing test suite. Involved in API testing, both manual testing using Postman and automation using REST assured libraries, etc. So these responsibilities are more generic. They're not talking about your project really. What I mean to say is, just have a look at these responsibilities here and compare them with whatever the summary points you have included here. These summary points are the generic summary points. So your responsibilities are actually sounding like these generic summary points. Just have a read at them. Having good experience with UI and API automation using Selenium WebDriver and REST assured. Expertise in preparing test plans, scripts, test cases for both manual and automation testing. So these look similar to your responsibilities as well. Your responsibilities in the project should in fact talk about the project, but should not be this generic. If they're generic, they look like some cut and paste responsibilities. You can even cut them and add it to your second project, and you can cut the second project's responsibilities, which are also looking generic, and paste it back here. It doesn't make any difference. Hence, these responsibilities aren't really sounding credible. So how can you make the responsibilities reflect what you have actually achieved or done as part of the project? Let's have a quick read of the project description here. One-click payment project allows customers to make purchases with payment information that's been entered by the customer previously. If you look at the sites like Amazon or some other commerce websites, if you have done any previous purchases or previous card authorization, from subsequent purchases or shopping, they provide you with the option for a one-click payment, meaning that they don't ask you to enter the payment details again, like the card information or the billing address, etc. But they provide you an option to one-click pay, meaning that you can just select something in their portal, and with a click of a button, you can purchase that. It allows the online shopper to purchase an item in marketplace without having to go through typical shopping cart procedure. So by looking at this project, the commerce project or the payments project, some things come to my mind immediately. For these kind of payment projects, in order to do any payments, first the test engineers need to set up a sandbox account with the payment processors. For example, if they want to make any Visa or MasterCard or any card payments or any bank payments, testers need to set up a sandbox account with the payment gateway, because your test environment need to talk to a test environment or a sandbox account on the payment gateway as well. because you do not want to make any real payments as part of the testing. Hence, you need to connect somehow your test environment by a sandbox account that the payment processor allows. So what I mean to say is, before you jump and write on any of the responsibilities, what you need to do is, for this specific project, set up sandbox account with the payment processor. And once you set up the sandbox account on the payment processor, you need to establish a connection between your test environment and the sandbox account. And by default, the test environments are internal and they cannot talk to any external systems. So you need to work with the DevOps in your company to whitelist the external IPs, or you need to work with them to allow the firewall to talk to the external payment gateway. Hence, we can include here work with DevOps to whitelist the calls to external payment gateway. Hence, this sounds something related to the project that you have done. This might not be too technical, but this talks about your knowledge with this particular business domain and your coordination with different teams, your knowledge about whitelisting some things and networks. So these kind of things are all important. So these are some things you do. And coming to the technologies as well, for example, Java and Selenium WebDriver are being used here, and Rest Assured is used, and these two are more generic as well. Hence, you can make this sound more project related. If you consider the APIs, most of the payment gateways or the PayPal, for instance, they have the developer API. The developer API tells you how you will be able to communicate with the payment gateway API in order to make your payments. So what you can do here is integrate with, say, PayPal developer API, integrate with PayPal developer API, and say authorize and capture the payments through Rest Assured. Guys, when you're working on a real-time project on a particular domain, you hear some project-specific terminology like authorization, capturing the payments, or refund, or chargeback. These are all like specific to the domain of the project that you have in your resume. So you need to make sure you have some of the words, some of the terminology or tasks that actually chime in well with whatever the project description you have. And these examples I have given here are more specific to the e-commerce and the payments related. But based upon whatever the project domain you have, you need to have those kind of responsibilities. So don't take these for fixed, because these are something related to whatever the project I have here. But based upon whatever the kind of project or domain that you are showcasing in your resume, you need to come up with those specific responsibilities that better reflect your project. That's it, guys. I do not want to go much detail here. And some things you cannot do much. For example, if you take Git or Jenkins or something else, they can be more generic only. For example, these are more internal. For instance, with Git, you can do branching and merging. This is something very much code related. There is nothing really project related you can talk about here. Or if you take Jenkins, you have like builds and you have different plugins to talk to different external systems. You work on the pipeline scripts. But it is okay to have some generic terminology here, but wherever possible, try to include some terminology that reflects more of the project. Alright guys, I think with that we have actually seen most of the things you need to have as part of the credibility or trustworthiness of your resume. And now let's quickly talk about what not to do as part of this. What I mean is, I have seen some resumes where the candidates include their address as part of the resume. Remember that address is very much personal information. You do not want to reveal your personal information to recruiters or whoever out there. You just only reveal your contact information and any professional information. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to include your address in order to look your resume as trustworthy or credible. You don't need to do that because you don't want to expose your personal information, because that's not really needed for the resume. I have even seen that some of the candidates including their father's name or blood group as part of the resume. Those are not really needed. Your father's name or blood group or address, these are not some things that should go into the resume. Remember that you include only the professional information as part of the resume. One other thing you need not do is, I have seen some resume with references information beforehand. Some candidates were including the references in their resume, the name of the managers or the name of the supervisor or co-workers they have worked with before, they were including in their resume. Always remember that you don't need to provide the references beforehand. You generally provide the references only when you are hired to that job, and in worst case, only when your resume gets shortlisted, you provide the references at that time. But you don't need to provide the references beforehand in the resume in the first place. One thing you could do is, if you want to talk about references, maybe finally at the end of the resume, what you can do is you can include a note here saying that the references can be provided upon request or something like that. And you don't need to provide them before your resume gets shortlisted or before you get hired. You don't need to provide them. If you want to talk about the references to make your resume trustworthy, you can keep something like this at the end of the resume, but don't reveal the names, email addresses, and contacts of your references beforehand. These kind of information is not needed as part of your resume. With that, folks, we have covered most of the important points about making your resume more credible. These kind of minor changes will really help you to establish your identity and get your resume shortlisted. Alright folks, let's continue in the next video.